We lost
Bill again.
No way.
There it is. Okay, there's Bill. All right.
Yeah, I put on hotspot. I don't know why.
All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris. Today is a special episode of my author's Alcove, where I got the privilege to buddy read a pretty fantastic debut by Mr. Chance Dillon, and Mercy, Tears of the Fallen.
I don't even have
mine's back there.
The advanced reader's copy here.
There we go.
I got to do this buddy read. I had the privilege to do this with a couple of other authors, as well as David, a pretty awesome, well-known book reviewer who you don't want to mess with. So I'll let you guys go around, tell me who you guys are, because you guys are authors in your own right, and you have a lot to share as well. So I'll start to my left here. Left this way, I guess.
Wait, am I on your left?
I think it's you.
I think it's you, Cal.
All right. My name is Cal Logan. I am a dark fantasy author. My debut novel, Shadowbane, came out about 2 years ago. There Chris came prepared. I don't have Chance's book handy. I don't have my own book handy.
You'll learn.
Good job, Cal.
Rookie mistake.
Yeah.
Bill?
I'm Bill Adams. I write multiple different types of genres, and Chris has them right there for me. God's Blood Tragedy, which is my adult. It's very similar to Chance's in terms of world building. No hand holding. So, brothers there.
That's nice. Yeah. I like reaching for a hand that never quite is there for me to grab. Just constantly walking away. Abandonment issues.
David,
please introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm David Walters. You guys might know me as Lord TBR from Fanfi Addicts. So started Fanfi Addict back in 2017. So just been doing the whole review thing, but I am soon to be a published author. Now, granted, it's not epic fantasy like all these wonderful folks, but I've got a couple of children's picture books coming out this year. Just some things I decided to write on a whim for my kids. So look for those. They are fantasy though, so if that means anything, but yeah, just glad to be here, and I very much enjoyed. Hopefully, you can see my Mercy copy back there. So looking forward to roasting Chance, because that's what we're doing, right?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah. He didn't know.
Yeah, all of the covers, by the way, Bill and Cal. I mean, those are amazing. Also, just want to say, and those are all books that, in me actually starting to like research and go public, that I saw these covers at least be announced at some point. That I was like, damn, like they were awesome when I first saw them, and I think it still has that same effect when I see them now. But yeah, thank you guys for having me on. I'm the author of Mercy. Book two is right here in the background, coming out at the end of this month. It's March, if you're watching this in the future. And I'm just super grateful that you guys got together and decided to read this. It's really freaking cool.
it worked out perfectly the same month that your second book is going to come out. So
that definitely is a benefit.
Planned that, don't worry. We knew. Yeah. We planned it.
No, I owe a big shout out to Bill particularly. I think he was the one who openly mentioned that he was going to read Mercy, and I was like, and Chance, you gave me this book like even before it was released, and I was like, man, I got to get to this before Ill comes out. So this worked out great. And then Cal and David, we found out we're also going to read it, and it worked out perfectly. So yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't ask to join or anything. I was just told I was going to have to. So.
Yeah, David was worried. David was worried. It was pretty funny. He was like, I don't know if I'm going to make it, guys. And I'm like, well, by the time we schedule this thing, you'll probably get it done anyway. So
probably right.
I had actually picked up a copy of Mercy back when the ebook was on sale for 99 cents. And I was like, I want to wait for the physical, because it's a beautiful looking book, and I want it on my shelf. You know, the interior artwork is awesome. I was showing like random people who don't read. I was just like, this is cool, right? So yeah, I was really hoping for a physical copy. So then when I won it through Hive Trap's giveaway, I was like, all right, like awesome, stars are aligning.
Oh,
and then
perfect.
and then I think I put it up on I did a video with all the books I got on the giveaway, and then Bill was like, hey, he's like, we're gonna be reading this, like, you want to join us? I was like, all right, perfect.
Nice. That's great.
Yeah, I was excited when Kale was the one that tagged me on that giveaway, and he's like, "Don't steal my book," and we both ended up winning.
Right. I definitely
I
sent
remember
Bill. I
chasing
sent you a
up
book
against
too.
you, getting it, and you're like, "Do you want the paperback one?" And I'm like, "No, I want this one."
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. I'm honored. Chance gave me the advanced readers copy, but I'm like, I got to have the hardcover, and I got to have it without the
Sticker.
thing on
Yeah.
there now. I
Pain
got
in the ass sticker. Yeah, we opted against the sticker for the arcs of book 2, though they are significantly more limited, just budget restraints. I poured out a ton of money for the arcs of book 1. I was like, I should probably be a little bit more frugal, just like more responsible.
Shit's not cheap.
No. But I mean, by the way, I'm not complaining. I just I'm grateful anybody that reads it. So grateful. Anyone who asked, they're like, "What is that? Naked? You just show everybody naked, huh?" Wild.
I have Cal's naked hardcover of Shadowbane, and yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, super happy with.
So it's printed on underneath the jacket.
Yeah. Robert Chotia did the beneath the jacket work. He also, the one we're going to do for book 2 is that the rider on the horse. So that'll be the naked hardcover for under the standard edition, which I'm really stoked for. I'm trying to try and keep them for all 4 books if I can, if schedules align, which I think they will. So we'll see.
Well, I answered one of my questions. So there's four book series.
Yes, yeah, it's going to be 4 books. Books 1 and 2 are a single story arc. It was a really hard, I'll call it a value proposition, to come to market with a 350,000 word story. So I wrote book 1, was querying for a little bit there, picked out my editor, which ended up being Dave Butler, as I was querying, just in case. I was like, hey, I want to just have this lined up and communicated, because I didn't know how timelines worked at the time. And then as that was happening for 6 months, I drafted book 2. And I always knew from the beginning that I wanted there to be like how Lord of the Rings is 3 books into 1. I wanted to do that same thing, but with 2 books. So it is sort of, you have that continuation from books 1 and 2. And then there's an undisclosed time period that happens. Then we have books 3 and 4, which will be a single arc as well.
Chance, did you always have that plan, or did you decide, hey, I don't want to make this, might be end up too long if I make this like one book kind of thing, or did you always have that plan?
I actually, Joe Abercrombie, I think as a reader hit a sweet spot for me in terms of pacing. So I really sort of wanted to hit around that mark, and 6 months at 1,000 words a day is 180,000 words. I ended up at like 220 or some odd after my first draft. And so the plan was always to do 4 books. So I had that in the back of my mind as I was writing the first book. I wanted to set things up. I didn't exactly know where it was going in book 1, but I just like knew that when I hit the ending point, I knew I got there. And then I knew that would lead well into book 2 to allow me to close out and simultaneously expand the things that I wanted to going into the rest of the series post book 2. But I personally like payoff in a story. So I felt that was warranted. Mostly, I feel like everybody loves payoff. So I know book 1 doesn't quite get there. I know it. You leave usually with more questions than you walk in the door with, which was the intent. And then book 2 really closes out the arc, and we see a transformation of our characters, which I was really hoping to communicate.
So that was actually one of the questions that I kind of wanted to ask was about kind of walking out with more questions than you came in with, because there are some things that you reveal towards the end. But I was going to ask, like, how much, I guess, clarity do you want the reader to have versus setting up more questions for them to go into the next book with? Like, what was the ideal, I guess, like split for you, or what was you talk about that a little?
Yeah, navigating a bit of a cliffhanger, and then sometimes literally. I wanted to present the enemy of the story by the end of book one. I wanted there to be a lack of clarity as to who that is up until roughly the last several chapters, which I think like chapter 38 or 39, maybe a little bit before that, we start to see sort of the unveiling of our true antagonist, which was the goal. And I wanted the reader to have a clear idea as to who is the bad guy by the end of book one, relatively speaking. I understand that these are all morally gray characters. I wrote them. But yeah, I want us to at least be like, oh, this guy's no good. This guy by the end of book one. And then also show something else that's no good. So you have like the bad guy that's a character, then you have the bad guy that's the world. And so I wanted to present both of those things by the end of the book in a way. Like I slowly try to peel back the layers, starting actually after probably the first like 15-20% of the book. I mean, a little before that, but I'm getting too into the weeds now. Goal was book one, show who the bad guys are. So you guys get a clear idea of who the real enemy is. And then going into book two, I wanted to show the conflict, inner conflict, obviously, that our characters are having that we get set up from book one, and also just the conflict with like purpose. I want that search for purpose. I wanted that to show up in book one. And again, just like make sure I told a good story. That was like at the end of the day, really the goal. But as far as like general structure, can I curse? I throw shit at the wall and then see what I like. Yeah.
And so it's you answered kind of the one thing, the main question that I had, and so I guess I did have the intended experience, and writing a book in the way that in the style that you write it, where you hold back a lot of information at first, and the reader kind of has to trust the author to piece things together. But it sounds like you were able to really walk that line that you were intending. Because the main pieces that you said that the reader should be able to take away is what I got from it, and I was still wondering if I was missing something because it's just so rich and there's just so much at play, kind of behind the scenes.
Yeah. There's definitely things that readers are going to miss first go around of book one. If you read book one, reread book one, you'll pick up things that you missed in book one. You read book one, read book two, then reread book one. You're going to walk away with a slew of other things that just sort of just can't come together. If you look at the prologue, sort of unintentionally, I'll admit, the structure of the entire story is sort of based in, it's like put down and compressed into that prologue. In Act 1, the very first part of the prologue, we get somebody who we don't really know their intentions. And you see that they're in a weakened position. They're a prisoner. You might be like, is this our good guy? Is this our bad guy? And then by the end of Act 3, you know very clearly who that is. So that's that sort of compression of bad guys, heroes, putting it together. I know that there's moral ambiguity, but for the most part, I feel like we meet a paragon, and we meet someone who might have been considered a paragon to somebody who maybe isn't. Which I thought was, in hindsight, a very cool thing that I just was very fortunate that it worked out that way.
So I was curious, as a fellow non-handholder writer, what made you decide to go that route? Because, I was looking at some of the other reviews out there too when I was reading, seeing if I was the only one that was not that was kind of confused in the beginning, because it's just like there is so much lore that is in this book, and you're just trying to learn the different terminology and learn the characters and everything. What made you decide to go that route? Because that's not a normal route that both of us took in our books. Yeah. Normally, like Cal said, you take, you slow drip the lore to get people in, and then you drop it on them.
Yeah.
Not here. This is sink or swim, and it's could be scary for some people.
Yeah, I'm also actually curious as to your answer to this question, but I'll fire my reasons. I loved Elden Ring. Obviously, that was a big that's a comp title for the book, which I thought was like, you know what, I'm comping this. Like, screw everybody else. I love the idea that Elden Ring opens up this world to you, and you have no idea where you are, but you do know that you're seeing something that's absolutely fantastic. And the deeper you dig into that, you can pick up a parchment on the ground somewhere, and it tells you, you know, the 10,000-year war. I'm making this up, but the 10,000-year war that happened, you know, and where demigods died or something. You know, I'm making it up, but well, there it goes. And I love that, and plus Malazan. Malazan showed me what is possible in fantasy world building, and I cannot speak enough to the like just how much Erickson opened up my perspective in terms of what was possible in world building. Just simply reading Gardens of the Moon and Dead House Gates and Memories of Ice, I just was like, wow, this is so jarring. You're sort of just like, these things are happening and I don't even know really what's happening. And so that was really cool. And then I also just in my learning how to write, I wanted to be allergic to lore dumps. And I wanted to, a part of it was challenging myself to be able to present information about the world without telling the reader the information. And most of my characters in this book are like in their late 20s, early 30s for the most part. So they know what the world's like, which is some of the best advice I got when learning how to write, was your characters know the world. So if you want something to come off like crummy, if something, then you can like objectively have a character tell somebody what's going on. And I'm sure you guys have heard all this advice of like, you know, you have the young character in a school, and so that they learn the magic system as the reader learns it, like those sorts of things. I'm like, I got a bunch of people that are pretty well versed in all these things. So how I got to play with that a little bit. The world around the characters needed to evolve, and I needed to grow the world myself and like explore it as well, which is part of the fun for me. So that also was a reason as to why I liked presenting it that way. And I know like the overwhelming names and in fantasy, and Tad Williams, like he was sort of like the can of worms that opened for me with Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, of just another fantastic world where you can't really say any of these names and they feel so foreign. Mine was a lot less graceful than Tad Williams by like probably a significant distance, probably, you know, an entire ocean's breadth away. But yeah, no, I that was also a part of my inspiration. So Bill, I'm curious as to what yours was and how you landed on kind of opening a similar way.
Yeah, mine's a little different. I have DNF'd Gardens of the Moon 3 different times. I just couldn't get into, like, I get 100 pages further each time, but then I'm just like, I can't commit to this massive series anymore. Like, that's not my style anymore. But no, mine was kind of like by chance, because I merged 3 different books into one book, and the pace I went with was really, really fast. Like, it was really quick. Like, this takes place over like 2 days. Wow. So that's what, like, I just throw you in right at the beginning. Like, that's how I made that choice. But I know that, like, there's a lot of the reviews I get similar to what I was reading with yours is, hey, you're not going to know what's going on for like the first 20, 30%. And then when it clicks. And I was telling, you know, Cal and Chris and David in our buddy chat, I was like, yeah, I got to about 30%. And that's when it started in my head where I was like, okay, I know what all these terms are now. I know what the world's like. I know these characters. And then the last 70% of the book, I just flew through it. Because Cal was like, you're already done? And I'm like, yeah. You know, I read it one night and it just,
wow.
Once you get it, and it just flows. So I love that style, but it is kind of, you know, from my experience, and I'm sure it's with yours too, it could be scary for the normal, regular reader, because it's not the normal traditional style, like you said, where you learn as the characters learn.
Yeah. I wanted to trust the reader so much that it was a risk for me to trust the reader. Like, and it's a risk, by the way, and also acknowledging it's a risk for the reader coming into a debut author's novel that treats it like this. But it's also just like how I like to consume story. When I read Malazan, by the way, your experience with Malazan is just like, it's like a Dark Souls experience. It's like an Elden Ring experience. I'm going to get beat down. I'm going to move a little bit further. And then like a lot of times you just put it down for maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years. And then you pick it back up and be like, wow, this was like I'm so glad I picked it back up. This is one of my favorite things. That's kind of like what I was going for. And I wanted something with staying power. I wanted something that in like maybe 30, 40 years, people can still pick up and be like, yeah, that holds up. Like that was a goal of mine as well. Like actively, I don't know what that means, but I had that in mind as I was writing. I just wanted a story that had that sort of scale, and then also with the pain that comes with getting immersed into the world. I give an example. Well, book 2 generally greatly rewards the reader for sticking through it. I try to make it that experience of book 2 feel like what this world is now. I'm going to the things that we need to remember. I'm going to try and make sure that we remember them. I'm going to spell out what people look like a little bit more, just to like give it a little bit more earth. And because book 3 is, I'm 20 some odd thousand words into book 3. And you sort of might get that book 1 experience a little bit, just hopefully, obviously, with better writing. But yeah, it's the goal with book 3 is to sort of give a very similar experience as to book 1's in terms of like, I'm thrown into the world again. Here I am. I really don't know if I'm going to be able to land this, but the goal would be that somebody can pick up books 3 and 4, read those, and then go back and read books 1 and 2 for their first experience and have a totally different experience than the reader going 1 through 4 when the time comes. That's a goal of mine. I'm going to communicate that with editors and see if it's possible. But I still obviously want those that are reading it 1, 2, 3, 4 to be properly rewarded for putting in time into a series. But I think that's also another risk I'm considering going into book 3. But yeah, sorry, I digress. That it is very cool. Thank you for sharing your experience, by the way, of how you kind of came to that no hand holding, and then obviously your experience. You sped through that last 70%. Like that, it seems like that's a way you also like to enjoy story.
It is. And sorry, I don't want to just steal your thunder here, but it's like that's how I felt about my book too.
Yeah.
Is that, and I've gotten that response as well. Is the world, or the readers know the world. They don't have to remember as much, and it just kind of flows. And the second book is usually, or at least I've had the experience, and I'm hoping with yours coming out soon, that it's going to be even better than the first one, just because you're ready. Like you're ready for that world again. And experience and all that stuff. So that's why I'm excited for book 2, having just read book 1, because it's not like I had to wait a year. it's like a month, which is good because I still have it all fresh in there.
Yeah. No, it is really, it's exciting that I'm very fortunate that the turnaround was what it was. Turner, what's up, dude? Is it cool if I answer this really quick?
Yeah,
I feel
go
like
for
I
it.
feel like I might have. Book 2 be a similar experience where you feel a little lost as the world plot develops. As the plot develops, yeah, I think. And there's parts of the world that you're going to see that are relatively new in book 2. There are definitely new locations that you literally go geographically. So I wanted to expand on that a little bit. But the world is definitely ever changing. Let's just say that. And as book 1 was a progression to seeing the world, book 2 is sort of, I don't want to say regression, but it does shed some new light on what the world becomes, which I thought was a really fun thing to do. But I wanted the reader to be rewarded for sticking through book 1. That was a big thing for me. I wanted the reader to feel like the experience they're getting with book 2. It's like they're now fully immersed in the world. That was the goal.
Well, I'll say I'm glad to hear you talk about deciding to go big. Bill, his books are on deck for me, but it's kind of the approach I'm planning to go, and I one of the things I'm doing with editing is really making sure I eliminate a lot of that lore, as you were explaining, because my characters are all in their mostly 30s, 40s, 50s, even. So, like you said, they're not going to be explaining, or they're not going to be talking about their world. The one thing I wanted to touch with you on, Dylan, is your races. I found those really, compelling, because you were like, you keep it very subtle, describing somebody's, facial features, or their eyes, or their, ears, or something along those lines, or their height, size. Was that part of like your naming process, was, setting a set of guidelines for naming conventions when it came to a different race of your characters?
Yeah, naming conventions. I tried to pull from letters mostly, like the first letter of a name. Usually, I think it's like a very basic naming convention. But I think for like somebody who I think like I knew my strengths and my weaknesses, I think that might have been a weakness of mine. So I wanted to pick something that does feel rather authentic, and the naming conventions relate more to like a single letter than they do maybe anything. For the most part, like you have certain races where these relatively people who are partial to magic have they're more likely to have a letter similar to that of the artisan than not. So that was something that I wanted to throw in there. As far as like how I treated the races alone, it all like sort of evolved from this like tabletop RPG I wrote for myself and some friends when I was still in the Navy. And I ran like a I've talked about this before, but I ran a 8 people games. I had a co-DM, luckily, where I gave everybody all these sheets that I had created with descriptions of these races. They had different names at the time. And then they evolved, obviously, as I wrote the story, and like their lore sort of became more apparent to me, which is partly why I got into writing a story in general. But it was really fun to sort of expand and let the players at the table also kind of dive into the lore of what their race is and who they are, and where they come from, what history do they have. I gave them like basic things like bars to play in, but then if they wanted to venture outside of it, I didn't stop them. I was like, yeah, that's really cool. Let's play with that. So that was a part of it as well, in terms of the races as a whole. But yeah, that was probably one of my favorite parts of creating the world, was actually creating these sort of, I think everybody has a picture of what an elf is. And I was like, okay, let me play on the pointy ears and blonde hair. Let's make them have bright eyes and dark hair. And let's change that a little bit and call them, obviously, like naming conventions for an elf are different for naming conventions of like per se an Amranil. Same with like a Sildurai. The artisans have a lot to do with what the races themselves are named, generally, and there's a reason for that too. That I sort of tap into with book 2, but not quite. That veil hasn't fully been peeled back, but there is a reason as to why that is.
So, question for you. So for the past several years with like my reviews, and now I really just do blurbs just for time's sake, right? But I've kind of lent myself to reading a lot of debut novels. So whether it's traditional, and really recently the last few years has been a lot of indie reads. And I know I wouldn't say every author plays it safe, right? Was as far as their narrative goes, like trying to be very straightforward, make sure the reader doesn't get lost. They don't want to put it down because they don't understand what's going on, but a lot of debuts are fairly easy to read, fairly easy to understand, follow along with. Did it ever, I guess, occur to you that like maybe I shouldn't go this route of being very not difficult to understand, but like challenging your reader in the very early going to go, look, if you make it through this, I promise there's a payoff, because a lot of folks won't do that. A lot of folks are just like, I want to make sure they know everything that's going on. We've got everything right in front of them, and we're going to hold their hand the whole way. But you just took this approach where like, hey, here's a little bit of a prologue, you'll be able to follow that along, and then I'm just going to like rip the rug out from under you, and you're just going to have to find your way.
Yeah. That's a great question, actually. I wrote the book that I'm going to wish I had written in 10 years, with the 10 years behind me. But that said, there's so much advice out there about like write short stories, write, start small and learn your craft, which makes sense. That definitely makes sense. I'm not like formally educated technically when it comes to writing, so I tried to use that ignorance as a weapon and do my best to just take the story that I wanted to tell and tell it, and not really care at the end of the line what happened. I came up with things that I wanted to a story I wanted to tell, obviously, and then the means by which I wanted to tell it. And lore dumps, I wanted those out for the most part. I think I tried to achieve that goal. And then I wanted the reader to feel like the journey was, I wanted them to be on the journey with me. I wanted them to feel the world building as it was being built, which genuinely it was. And obviously with refinement and having written book 2 before book 1 was even released, I had the foresight of knowing more about my world before releasing the first book. So there were obviously some changes that I went back and made into the drafts of book 1 as we were in the editing process. But I wrote the story I wanted to tell, and I didn't quite, with the exception of being not bringing a 350,000 word to market, book word to market, book word, whatever. With the exception of that, with that rule of like, I need something that like people are. I'm asking a reader to take a risk. Number one. Number two, they have to have enough faith in me that they're going to continue reading the story and finish it. So if they have a 350,000 word book in front of them and they finish that first 20% and they're like, wow, that was a bit of a labor, I don't know if I want to do that. It's a lot harder, a lot taller of a task. So I trusted the reader a lot. And yeah, I never quite hit a point where I was like, man, maybe I should make this easier. It just is the story that it is, and that's just sort of how I felt about it. Cal, how did you approach your world building with Shadowbane? I think Bill, you said slow drip and then boom. How did that work for Shadowbane?
So because it's based on feudal Japan, which is a completely like foreign historical period for a lot of people, or they just might not know too much about it, I erred on the side of explaining stuff, but I also have a younger 15-year-old character who's not from that continent. So the characters can explain some of the mythology to him. And I do add context. I try to err on the side of clarity because so much stuff was new that I chose to err on the side of clarity. I didn't Sanderson it and explain who a character was 40 times throughout the novel, but
like every ingredient in a pie.
Yeah. But especially with a lot of the foreign terminology, I included like a robust glossary for every Japanese word you hear, and whenever I introduce a new term or concept, especially if it's important, I did make sure to like maybe the first time I used it, I gave a pretty like full definition, as much as what I felt like did not interrupt the prose or the pacing, because I also don't want to info dump, but I wanted the reader to feel grounded. And then like the second time, I would almost do like a half definition, like include the most important bit. And then if I chose to clarify something a third time, because maybe 6 or 7 chapters go by, it would be like a phrase or a word. Like the first time I used the term daimyo, which is basically like a provincial warlord. I say like they had powerful rulers who rule provinces under the king. And the second time it's like no daimyo, comma, like no lord. And then I move on. And it's like, all right, I've defined it twice and have full definitions in the back. And that's, I think that's enough for readers.
Yeah. I that's the smart approach, I think. also it's a story you wanted to tell, right? And the way that you wanted to tell it. And I think there are probably a lot of writers out there that will watch this or are watching it. And I think it's important to remember that you could take whatever route you want and that it's effective, Yeah.
You really can do what you want. And I think a matter of it is like you took a huge risk with your world building. But for example, when you decided to split the 350,000 word book in half, that was a smart call. That was like a safe call. And so I think you can take really big risks in some areas if you like, I don't like to say play it safe, but if you make conservative decisions in other areas.
Sure.
Like Shadowbane is really fucking violent, pretty graphic, and I realized I was taking a risk in that direction. So I didn't want for people to feel lost while going through this insane bloodbath. Like
Right,
I feel like it'd be too much, you know.
It's just like, oh,
just coming off of Cal's book, I can vouch that I think he balanced it really well between character, you know, a little bit of the lore getting fed to you as you go on this very violent journey. So, yeah.
Heck yeah.
I actually wanted to circle back to go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Cal.
I was going to circle back to an Elden Ring thing regarding the a little bit more on the world building. So one of the advantages that world building or that video games have is that, like, even if you don't know what's going on in Elden Ring, you can just run around and explore and kill stuff. And whereas reading and it's an open world, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
In a novel, it's a very linear experience. So, you know, you said you set out to write the story you wanted to write. Were you really confident, or were you a little nervous at first when you started going down this road?
Confident, and I hate saying that because obviously I've had moments of just like, oh shit, what have I done? You know, just like of course, like that exists. Like you get it, you know, you get your first bad review, you're like, man, do I suck? But then you realize that like everybody's got their own taste. When it comes to, you know, I approached it with confidence, the same confidence that you as a tarnished walk into the world and take on the Sentinel for the first time, you know,
and get absolutely slaughtered.
Absolutely slaughtered. Exactly. So I think, I think the answer is yes, confidence. And actually, I do think it's an interesting touch point to mention how in a video game, the medium is different than a story, because when I played Elden Ring, I very much I hated using weapons already attached with like names, like a demigod's weapon. I'm like, nah, screw that. I'm going to make a weapon the weapon of a demigod. Like I'm going to take a claymore that's like covered in black flames, and then I will be a tarnished, remembered in name, and everybody will use this black flame claymore.
You're gonna plus 25 it and put your own weapon arts on it.
Exactly. Yeah. That like so when it came to my character in Elden Ring that I was playing with, I did obviously the characters are more based off of a tabletop RPG generally, but tabletop too. Actually, you're sort of in like usually an open. I mean, you can be in an open world setting. They can also be linear. I played it more open world. I do love the idea of characters coming into a world that exists and has rules and is preset. And they're playing within those rules and then seeing how it evolves around them. So that's sort of how I played with the idea of like an open world, because the world is open and the world is always moving. And so I cheated by this guy gets maidens. I cheated by like exploring different POVs and exploring other characters. Did it again, and by doing that, I was able to show parts of the world. There's a particular chapter where I think we first get into Salismir's head in book 1. And we get an introduction to something else in the world, really, for the first time. And I didn't want to really show that through the eyes of any of the other characters right out of the gate, with the exception of obviously the Crimson Stone lining the walls of Ocelith and so on and so forth. But like, what is this thing that they've been referring to for how many ever chapters every once in a while? It's like, oh, this is what that is. And the character that you see that happen with, it's the first time we're seeing this character. So I definitely cheated by using a ton of POVs, and showing parts of the world through those characters' eyes, which again is another Steven Erikson piece of just like, and again, I did not do it as graceful as he did. But the world is ever changing, and each character is going to perceive something differently than another character. And Salismir's approach to that happens to be other characters' approach to it in some ways, and then others like had limited experience with that, or limited or no experience with that, and then eventually experience it. And I wanted it to feel harrowing, and I want the characters to feel interconnected that way, by the things happening in the world around them. Maybe they're not getting the exact same experience, but the world is changing and you're seeing it one piece at a time. That was like a big part of trying to introduce this open world concept into a linear story. Which so I'm actually super grateful that you brought that up, because for me, when I have conversations like this, I learn something new. I learn to articulate something every time, and that's why I enjoy. Part of the reason why I enjoy having these conversations. So thank you for asking that.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on something that is I won't say a bugaboo, but something that I always like in these long series is some plot resolution. But now that I know that you split the like a first book up into two parts, that makes sense, because there really isn't much of a resolution in this book. Do you think how do I want, do you think that's a how would I ask this question? I don't want this to sound terrible.
No, dude,
Like,
you're not going to hurt my feelings if you got
no,
something
I
to
know.
say.
But
Just
like,
say it.
I'm just don't want this to sound negative, because it works really,
Can.
really well. But do you think that that might scare people, like readers, because
Sure.
they're expecting like a big climax and something to happen? And there's a big climax here, but nothing is clear at the end. Like the end
Yeah.
is just like, there you go, cliffhanger ending. We know that something's going to be continue going in every plot. There, you had 4 plots basically, and none of them were
Totally.
resolved.
Yeah. I took the Joe Abercrombie kind of showed me this one, and he got away with it pretty well. So I stole this concept again. But I don't know if you've read the first Law series, but the second book, there's a particular thing that they're chasing that they that it's sort of abruptly, don't necessarily achieve their goal, right? So I think by the end of the first book, I was like, okay, we have this thing. We're going to go to a place with this thing. Oh shit. Like I wanted to present that oh shit moment. And in producing that oh shit moment, we now are emotionally leveraged on the character's experience. And so I feel like that let me get away with the cliffhanger experience, which I may not always get away with. There's readers, I'm sure, that pick it up, that put it down, that feel that maybe they're not happy about it, right? But the promises that I make in book 1 from the very beginning, book 2, I think, and this is me, I know I'm biased, so I'm obviously going to say it. But in writing book 2 constantly, and this is just I'm bragging, but it's just how I felt. And so I'm going to shamelessly say it. When I was writing this book and I was summing up the shit that happens and giving the payoff, I'm like, holy shit, that is fucking awesome. Like that's how I felt. And every time I would read through it, I'd be like, damn, this is cool. Damn, this is cool. Damn, this is cool. And so I'm confident enough with where book 2 went that I'm comfortable putting the reader through the experience that is what we get at the end of book 1 being a cliffhanger. And now your emotions are tied to that experience and the lack of a resolution to that experience. Because now we get introduced to this thing that deeply affects at least one of our characters to a significant degree. And then the other sort of is in a secondary way, or maybe in a way that we don't get to see by the end of book 1. And so that is a great question. I do think people will be turned off by that. Knowing where book 2 goes and how confident I am in book 2, as blindly confident as I was in book 1, I am less so. Let's just say a bloody bandage wrapped confident going into book 2. Just about.
I will say though, I appreciate what you did with the ending. This might go into spoiler territory, but I kind of appreciate the direction you took with those main people and totally unexpected outcome of everything that happened in the end. And I like that. And that, of course, that makes that grimdark. That makes that Elden Ring.
Yeah, it gets me fired up. You just saying that right now. It gets me fired
for sure.
up. Yeah. If you want to chat spoilers, I'm totally game. Up to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, we're heading into 40 minutes here, so maybe we can switch to spoilers.
Up to y'all.
So Yeah, for those who have not read it, make sure if you're going to jump off, you can pick up Tears of the Fallen right now, available. And then his follow-up, Ill is the Fate, is available March 31st. This is your warning.
I want to touch really quickly on that. And we don't, it could be spoiler still. But be confident in the story. I'm not going to credit the author, but I'll mention it after to you guys, just because I don't know. It's I guess controversial enough that I should be quiet. But there was one piece of advice that this particular author gave that stuck out and resonated with me, and it's about like you do actually need, and I'm not saying you as in perpetual everybody in the world, but being arrogant about how good your story is. Obviously there's a fine line there. You don't want to be like, I have the best story in the world and all of the other stories suck. That's not true. That's just, quite frankly, it's just not true. But me being confident in my story is by no way is it saying all the other stories aren't good. I'm just, two things can be true. I'm confident in my story, and there are also so many other amazing stories that are significantly better than mine. Like 100%. That said, my story is the best story, right? That's like how I have to like have that in my head. And like I wanted to write a great story. I think everybody wants to experience a great story when they go into a story. Are we always going to be experiencing the greatest story we've ever read? Unfortunately, no. But I think that just I accept that, and also I wanted to create a story that to me becomes the best thing I've ever read. that at least because of just what impacted me growing up. And I like to think I have good taste in for me, it was a lot of movies growing up. I wasn't much of a reader actually as a kid. And I'm sure that might show up apparently in the prose places, I'm sure. But yeah, no, I just wanted to say that really quickly.
I get what you're saying. Like the other thing is you have to be confident enough and think your own story is awesome. Otherwise you're not going to look at it 7, 8, 9, 10,000 times when you write it. Like you have to write the thing that you're excited to read until your eyes bleed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. If you're not excited about your own work, then nobody's going to be excited about your work.
Yeah. Is there actually, before maybe if there's still people here, non-spoiler, is there anything that you guys in your experiences writing would share with people before we jump into spoilers? I'm just curious because I want to know and I want to steal your secrets.
So for me, since I'm also writing a giant 4-book series that each book is bigger and bigger than the previous one, I haven't touched book 3. I'm like 50,000 words into it, but after this one, I took it's been a year since that released, and I haven't touched that world. I decided to go do something different, something similar, because I created my own Cosmere, like an idiot.
Dope.
In that,
no, you're not an idiot for doing that.
No, but I had fun doing it. But I think it's important to not just write write one style of book, because it helps you think differently. It helps you because writing a mystery is harder or different than writing a political intrigue or something like that. Like action is different in these different types of genres. So I think it's cool to utilize multiple genres in a project and then try to work with those. That's that got me out of my slump with that one, because I was just ready to not be in that world anymore.
Hell yeah. If I were to sum that up in 2 words, I would say challenge yourself.
Yep.
It just is me interpreting it. By the way, I'm not saying that that's what you were saying.
No, it's exactly right. The middle grade book I wrote, I don't read middle grade, but that working with my buddy Dewey on this one is just so much fun, because I write dark shit where people get destroyed.
I bought that for somebody, by the way. I have a client of mine who's considering writing middle grade or younger, and I actually bought that. Oh, that's awesome. That's the Tender Sword book, yeah?
Correct. Yeah.
I bought that. Yeah, that's dope. Dude, I'm gonna be honest, I had no idea you're that Bill Adams.
Yep.
That's so sick.
Oh,
and I saw God's Blood Tragedy everywhere also, for what it's worth. But that's really cool. And you produced something that made it pretty damn far in Spiffbo, which is a big accomplishment.
Great. Yeah.
Cal, do you have? I'm actually just curious. And then David, I want to hear your children. And then Christopher, I know you're writing something. So I just want to steal all your guys' stuff.
Unfortunately, I think you've already kind of applied one of the biggest pieces of advice I could say, which would be to take risks and trust your gut. Like when I started writing Shadowbane, even leaving the high level of indiscriminate violence aside, like right, which is a risk in and of itself.
Yeah.
But writing a story that takes place in a culture that I've never lived there. I don't know if this is a surprise or not, but I'm not Japanese. And I actually didn't have any formal education in their history or anything either. So I was casually interested in it, but I went in pretty blind, and I wanted, I didn't want to misrepresent or just really lazily portray a culture as rich and vibrant as feudal Japanese culture. And I was kind of scared to write it at first because I was like, what if I fuck this up, And I did a lot of research, but every time I thought about kind of pulling back and maybe not trying to go as hard as I did with the mythology and the world building and the history and stuff, I was like, do some more research, just until you feel confident with it. And I still trusted my gut through those moments of doubt, and it gave me a story that I'm really, really proud of.
Hell yeah. That's awesome.
It sounds like you already know how to do that. So I wish I could offer some new.
I was actually picking up something that I think is actually super important to communicate, which is I don't want this to sound wrong, but you admitted yourself that you were sort of casually interested in the topic, and I think that might actually be the biggest gem from what you just said. Although trust your gut is super important. Just go take risks. Great. Ignorance is a tool. I think I went into writing fantasy knowing virtually nothing about written fantasy. If you think back to some of the greatest writers of history who write fantasy, the backlog of stories that they have is so much smaller than what we have today. And so everybody thinks that you have to have read the greatest fantasy stories in order to write the next great fantasy story, or know everything there is to know about X history to write the greatest story ever. And I think there is something to that. Also, I think there's something that's calling you and picking at you that your brain wants you to expand on and explore. And that might be literally through studying in history, which I'm sure also played a part in your writing process. But yeah, I think it's super freaking cool that you found something you were interested in. You're like, I need to know more. And maybe you found more through telling the story and creating the world that you created, which I think is just freaking badass, by the way.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
David?
Yeah, as far as mine, it really was a thing where I had tried my hand at writing fantasy, and honestly, it's really coming from inexperience. Kind of like you, Chance. I didn't read a ton growing up. I read the Harry Potters in middle school, and I read Lord of the Rings kind of younger. But I took a lot of time off from reading when I was in college, and really didn't pick anything back up until I graduated. And I was like, well, now what do I do in all my free time? Because I'm not married. I don't have kids. I can go play in a rec league, but what am I going to do when I'm just sitting at the house and I don't really feel like watching TV? So I got into reading, and clearly, I have a lot of the big series, but I haven't read them because, again, I read a lot of debuts, read a lot of indie stuff. But as far as what got me to the reading or into the writing and kind of what I have done for myself is, I've read thousands, and Bill could attest to this. I've read thousands of books to my kids. We did the 1,000 books to pre-K with my now 5-year-old. I'm doing it now with my 2-year-old. Their library is stacked way more than I ever had growing up. Honestly, they probably have more books than I have now, and I have a lot. So, but I kind of got to a point where I was like, I want to write something that I enjoy, but I think that my kids will also enjoy because, really, if you're going to buy a children's book, you're the one that's reading it. Your kid's not really reading it. So it has to be of interest to you at some rate, right? And a lot of the stuff that I read, was, I wouldn't say too childish, but just to a point where I'm just like, I wouldn't just pick this up and read it, but of course I'm not going to because I'm 35. But, Llama Llama only gets you so far, right? Pout Pout Fish is great the first few times. But, I realized that there's some kind of market I can tap into where people like my age that read fantasy want fantasy books that they can also read to their kids and get them interested in reading fantasy as they get older. And so I was like, I'm going to write a D&D type children's book, and that's going to be my first published book, hopefully late spring. And then I go, okay, what am I going to do with that? Am I going to continue a series? Am I going to do something else? And I was like, it's really, I really enjoy kind of when I'm not reading dark fantasy or epic fantasy, is I like cozy fantasy, right? So I like writing a Baldry, every now and again. And so I was like, I'm going to write a cozy fantasy, picture book, because I don't see any of those anywhere either. And so it's really one of those things where I'm just going, okay, what do I want to write? What do I also think will appeal to kids? Because obviously I don't want to write something graphic. But also at the same time, I'm like, what are other people that are my age that have kids at this point that maybe they aren't even reading, or they are reading fantasy? And I'm going, how can I tie those things together? And then the next step is, okay, how do I challenge myself to write something that's a little bit different? It's not just, here we have 6-8 lines that rhyme and great, pictures are awesome. And, Sanderson came out with a kid's book called The Most Boring Book Ever last year. And really what it is it's a picture book, very limited words, but it tells a story while also telling a story with the illustrations. And I go, I think I can do that. And so I started doing that, and I've got a third one that's out on Query right now. That's kind of doing the same thing, but and I kind of took Chance. I kind of took what you said. They said, this is really good. And I'm not going to say that I'm better than Sanderson, but I think this book is better than Sanderson's book.
It's possible.
And I was like, and I want people to know that I think that is the call. That's the case. But my challenge now is, okay, do I continue doing this? Is there's, am I going to be able to get to a level where I feel confident that, hey, every time I write one of these and I feel it's good, that it's going to get published? Or do I need to venture into middle grade, which my publisher is kind of poked and prodded me to write a middle grade novel? And I started on one, and it's just not there for me yet, because I've got like 8 other like children's like picture books that I have already either mostly written or finished, and I'm going, I got to find one that really clicks with a publisher too, because it's quicker doing that instead of going the route that I'm going, which I'm doing kind of like a smaller publisher with my first 2. I was like, I got to find something that's going to be a little more mainstream and I can kind of get an in. But yeah, mine is like, just keep writing it, 'cause all of my stories are different. Like I said, I've got a couple of fantasy. I've got one that's like I wrote about both of my girls, and actually made my wife cry the other day about it, because she was like, I can't read this right now. Because it's like, about watching your kid grow up, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, you don't just, again, don't limit yourself to just, I only write fantasy, or I only write, science fiction. Like, change it up a little bit, because you might find that, like, hey, this is really enjoyable to write something that I either didn't think I was interested in at all, or I didn't think I'd be good at. And you might look at it and you go, oh, that's not too bad.
Yeah, that's awesome. I heard Shadowbane's cozy fantasy.
Yeah, very cozy. Yeah.
Oh, that might be my next one then. I need something to cleanse the palate.
It's got a kitty in it. It's got a kitty in it, so it's course.
If you zoom in really hard, there's like 10 pages that are cozy. like when Jin is chilling at the brothel with his favorite prostitute, that's about as sweet and wholesome as it gets.
Yeah. Oh, Max, by the way, what's up, dude? Sorry, I didn't meant to acknowledge that. Yeah, he's been crushing it. He has a Charlie Day level. I don't know if you guys know, like the meme from It's Always Sunny, where he's like got the board and the strings. Max has sent me an image that hopefully he sends me another one updated, and then I can share it with everybody, because it's, well, I guess it would be spoilery, but it's epic. It's so sick. Christopher, I before your choice. I mean, we could hop into spoilers, or what do you want to do?
Yeah. I'll just really quickly mention
Sure.
as you were saying, as I said earlier, I appreciate that you went in like all in and decided to go big. It's kind of the direction I want to go as well. I'm trying to look at tropes in a different way. Standardized tropes, chosen ones, the mentor, and then kind of change those on its head a little bit. Try to change things into kind of like questions I've always had when I've read fantasy, especially classical fantasy. I think I might be a little older than most all of you guys probably. So a lot of the fantasy I read when I was younger in my 20s and all that was that typical, this is a dark lord, these are all really good people that, they mess up, they're kind of stupid, but for some reason they're always good at everything at age 15 and and are able to miraculously get through without any training or anything like that. But I wanted to take a lot of that stuff that I did like when I was a kid, and your tastes kind of grow into, and mine grew from Malzahn was an inspiration to me, but before that was Glenn Cook's The Chronicles of the Black Company. Those books were like something totally new at the time for me anyway. Everything was, good versus evil, and then you had these very grim, dark characters that were villains essentially you were reading from, and I like that. It was a totally new thing to me, and there was a couple of stories I wrote and I shelved them because they were crap, and you just keep doing that, kind of like what David said too, is write other stuff. I did take creative writing courses. I wrote some poetry. I wrote a couple of like fictional speculative fiction, horror even. Not really my favorite areas, but I still wrote them regardless. And, I felt like I wrote some pretty good stuff. So it's just a matter of practice and then finding that confidence to write the book you want to do. And like I said, I would love to sell some books, but for me, it's like if I can just get the book out and done, I'll feel happy.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Chris, if I can jump on the back of what you said, something you said really quickly. When talking about like you had wrote a couple different things, including poetry and stuff like that. One of the like best things I did for my writing was I wrote a screenplay, and half of one, but because you have to write differently because it's a different medium, and it completely changed the way I write descriptions. Because in screenplay you can't be like, oh, blue jeans, black jacket, brown eyes, or blonde hair or whatever. That's like boring. You have to give like a vibe. Like he walked into the coffee shop like he'd been there for the last 20 years or something, like that gives like a different, that tells you something about the character, not what they look like but who they are. And I actually kind of started applying that a little bit to my descriptions, but all to say that like there's just like a little nugget that I learned, like a technique I learned just from trying to write something completely outside of fantasy novels, which I typically which is usually my bread and butter.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So Chris, it's a great point on writing across like a variety of different, different things, not just getting pigeonholed into one thing.
Heck yeah, that's dope.
I mean, I was writing some of the parts to what I'm writing now before Elden Ring came out, and I'm like, and when you were talking about Elden Ring, it's like, a lot of this feels kind of like Elden Ring, a little bit. I'm dealing with demigods and and a lot of just dark stuff, and it's funny how it just kind of naturally happens, and it's probably why I gravitate to things like Dark Souls and Elden Ring and all that, and it just kind of goes hand in hand with the writing for sure.
Yeah, Chance, you really were able to capture kind of like the atmospheric feel of that, which is, anyone who's played Elden Ring knows it's an enormous undertaking. But I actually one of my pet peeves as a reader is when writers use comps that are not actually like their work. They just comp something popular.
Yeah.
And you completely nailed like the Elden Ring vibe, which I was really impressed by.
Yeah, that's I was gonna say that too, Cal. It's like, and I have to say this. It's just like you read so many books like this is the next Game of Thrones meets whatever, and it's like, no, it was nothing like that, kind of thing, and you're often set up for disappointment. But this was like sold as you promised it would, essentially. Yeah.
I think obviously like Abercrombie and Malazan are stretches by way of like skill. But
I don't want to say Malazan because I don't have nowhere near Steve Harrison.
I said it because I'm like, you know what, these are the exact fans I'm shooting for. And I'm a fan, and it's true. It really did open up a whole perspective for me. I would be baffled if George R.R. Martin hadn't read Malazan when Miyazaki approached him to write the lore for Elden Ring. I'd be baffled if that wasn't a part of. There are so many things related to I know that it's possible that like you can come up with two ideas at the same time. I know. There's no way George R. R. Martin hadn't read Malazan when writing the lore for Elden Ring. That's what all I'll say. I don't know, but there is so much with the gods and X, Y, and Z that's dealt with in Elden Ring that is touched on in Malazan, and it's evolved, of course, and there's like its own thing for sure. But it was, there are some things that I'm just like, not in a bad way, but like I'm like that's awesome. Like I see you. Yeah. So I just wanted to make that very clear.
Yep.
I'll lay up.
Ready to talk some Mercy, Tears of the Fallen?
Yeah. Sorry. I whenever I get an opportunity to steal other people's wisdom, I try to like a vampire. Yeah. Let's do like.
Are you good on time, Chance? Are you
good on time? 10, 15, whatever. If we talk spoilers, then it starts to, you guys are like, wow, this is fucking boring, then I can get off. I don't want. Yeah. Up to you. But I'll like stay up until my eyes start closing, Later, Max. Dude, appreciate you, man. I met Max at a J. Kristoff signing at Barnes & Noble's. He's the first ever person to recognize my book in public. He goes, "Oh, do they sell that here?" I had a copy I was giving to someone, and I'm like, "No, it's like mine." And he's like, "Oh," he's like, "You wrote that?" I was like, "Yeah." He's telling me how he sees it everywhere, and so that was if you talk about like celebrating the wins, that was a win moment for me that I won't ever forget. That was like, holy shit, this person recognized my book and not me, which is nice. I'm not saying people would recognize me first, but it's cool that somebody recognized the book. That was like mind blowing to me, absolutely mind blowing. So I wanted to shout him out.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's a while back. Someone asked me, they're like, "Oh, like, do you want to be like famous?" I'm like, no. Like, I was like, here's like my ideal. Like, I would love to like glance over on the train and see someone reading my book, right? But I don't want to get recognized at the grocery store. Like, I got shit to do. I don't want to get like,
I'm just here to get milk. I'm done.
yeah, exactly.
The most famous writer right now, I don't think you could pull off on the side of the street, with the exception of like, there's some, but like, I think I don't think most people know what Brandon Sanderson looks like. Maybe Sarah J. Maas, maybe Rebecca Yarros. And I'm saying those names. Yeah.
Not a problem I'd ever have to worry about.
Popular. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But maybe one day, maybe it's something that you do have to worry about. It's possible. But yeah, we could chat spoilers a little bit. What do you guys want to dive into? I'm game. Hey, do you mind really quick if I fill my water up? I'm getting.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
2 seconds.
Parched.
We will prepare our onslaught of insults now.
There you go.
All right, so I say we approach this from like multiple angles. Like, someone go after his writing, someone go really personal, someone go after just New Jersey.
Yeah, where's Jeffrey Ross when you need him?
You guys are okay going past an hour? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If it gets way too late, I'll have to cut out. But I'm good for now.
It shouldn't
early.
be. I wouldn't imagine we have to.
Yeah. I mean, I go to bed. I go to bed pretty early because like usually the next like 9 is when I start. It's 8:45 here. 9 is when I start winding down. But like I can push that a little bit.
Okay, gotcha.
All right. Let's.
All right. Do we kind of want to go maybe around circle? Maybe just general thoughts of the experience we had with Tears of the Fallen, and then maybe we can get into a little more details of some plots and some character and all that.
Sounds good.
Heck yeah.
Cal, you want to go first? You're in the clockwise position.
All right. Put me on the spot. So going back to talking about the ending and how the lack of a climax. I think that if you think about climaxes and that you need like a giant battle or something like that, then sure. But I think I actually really like how you blended like a betrayal and magical political upheaval with a kind of pulling the rug out from under you, like this part of the quest is not going to happen, with a really good informational reveal that kind of recontextualizes a whole part of the story, the whole story really, and then gives Alavist a major shakeup, while also like splitting the party and then introducing the Sildonari. Right, am I saying that right?
Silderai. I don't know.
Silderai.
But yeah, you're good. Yeah.
Yeah. To some of the other main characters we've been following. So I think the way you tied that together and kind of delivered like a series of like mini peaks was really well done, because it wouldn't have made sense to have like a massive climactic like action scene, because it's just not what the story is at that point in the story. So all I'd say, like, I actually like how you tied together kind of a few different types of endings for the various plots that were going on.
Yeah. I had a really good time. The reveal of Lanera at the end being alive was like, I knew it existed, but I had a totally different idea in my head when initially writing it, in regard to where we were going to get to by the end of the first book. It didn't happen that way. It's something that tied into the second book, just because I was like, this is better for now. It's just like set up better. And her being like, all of the storyline sort of having this new introduction, like here's all the stuff that we were talking about earlier. Now we have all this new stuff, which, like you said, sort of recontextualizes or maybe entirely contextualizes the world that is surrounding them. But Alavis seeing Lanera for the first time was, like, for me, just such a freaking cool scene, of like, holy shit. Like, that's heartbreaking. Like,
it's like hope and horror at the same time.
Yes, exactly. Hope and horror. Yeah.
I appreciate, I was going to copy Cal essentially, because that was the thing that really stuck out, and maybe it was just because it's the ending, but one, I appreciate that you went, as I mentioned, and on spoilers, you went the direction of like shit just hit the fan and didn't go the way anything planned. And what I appreciate with the Lanera scene was the emotional response with Elvis, and I think it was I think that really emphasized that scene home, because it tied in back to the beginning when you're introduced to his wife, and you spend a good chunk in the beginning with his wife in just that one chapter before everything goes bad, and you invest enough into her character, and then it comes full circle at the end, and I like that you did that.
Yeah, and then the horror of just like being able to see sort of, or feel, but not be in control of what's happening in that right. POV at the very, very end was something that that really ties together very well. I obviously toot my own horn here, but in book 2, so I'm like just obviously super stoked because it's just like all the payoff that happens. And
will she be a POV character in book 2?
Is she a POV character in book 2? I don't know if I should say.
You don't spoil anything if you think it's.
It feels like if I say no, it feels like if I say no, it might spoil something. It also feels like if I say yes, it might spoil something. So I'm not sure.
Maybe.
No comment.
Maybe she is.
maybe not. Yeah, maybe not.
RARO.
Yeah, I will say this. Like, I get a lot of messages about how Marin, especially early on, of like how Marin was a lot of people's favorite character. I know I'm just like I'm talking about my own story at this point, but it was when people would tell me that, I'm like, ooh. I'm like, oh, yikes.
Whoops.
Yeah. How far again on you were in the book?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like the biggest appreciation I had is when I got to that scene with Marin, and you take that choice, and I was like, yes, now I know that Chance is not going to cop out. This is not going to be season 8 of Game of Thrones, where everyone survives the Battle of Winterfell. Like that's not going to happen. And I'm like, thank God.
I could talk about that forever.
Yeah,
I
agree.
So do we just need to switch gears?
That scene where they're just in Winterfell and it's like every character we know and just swinging their sword, they're the only ones. I'm just like,
Yeah, they're on that shed.
I'm like, you just ruined a cinematic masterpiece. Like, how did like that episode? Oh my god.
They're covered in zombies, and the camera cuts, and then it goes back, and they're fine. I'm like, what? Like,
yeah.
I'm literally about to get to that point in my final rewatch too, and I'm not looking forward to it. I don't know if I should skip it or.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, they just wanted to keep the cast together, so they didn't want to kill anybody off. I think
Tormund Giantsbane should have been dead north of the wall, which I hate to say because I love Tormund Giantsbane. But if they wanted to like be like, this is Game of Thrones, he gets dragged under the fucking ice, and I never see that guy again. And
Right.
and then that would rip my heart out of my chest because I love that character. But like he was getting dragged. I'm like, oh fuck, he's dead. And then he gets saved. And I'm like, what? This isn't Game of Thrones. I'm like, rip my fucking heart out.
People don't understand with killing characters, because now there's this weird pushback now on killing characters, especially if you do it frequently, where it's like, oh, like there's other ways to add stakes to a story. There's other ways to add tension, and you don't have to kill characters to deliver a good story. It's like, well, sure, like of course, it's not like you kill everybody, but at the same time, like you do have to show that actions have consequences, especially if you are writing a dark or fantasy story. But also sometimes people just run their course and they don't actually serve a purpose in the story anymore other than just being liked. And at that point, it actually helps the story to have them out of the way. Like the last season of Stranger Things could have benefited immensely from having like 8 fewer cast members, but they didn't kill anybody for 3 years. So then they had, 30 characters, each with 2.5 minutes of screen time, and the whole thing felt really jumbled, cluttered.
Yeah.
I think they just fall in love with their cast too much, and then they don't want to get rid of anybody.
That happens.
Essentially,
for
what
sure.
it came down to.
Or you have the Patrick Dempsey situation with Grey's Anatomy, where they're just like they hate you, so they want to kill you. But yeah, no, there are a couple characters at the end of book 1 that initially were alive that survived the fall from the waterfall. That I was like, I gotta kill these people, because I started writing book 2, and I'm like, they do not have a place in this story.
It's tough. I'm finding that out very hard. It's like I don't want to kill this character. I like it too much, but
yeah. Sometimes it's just like there was a road I wanted to go down. Yeah, there was a road I wanted to go down, but unweaving that would have been such a tall task next to everything that like it was one too many promises that I would have made at that point, that I was like, I can't do that. Marin's death, by the way, I rolled a D20. I was high on mushrooms for the first time ever, and I was writing that scene, and I rolled a D20, and he failed the death save. But I was like, I don't know if he lives through this, so I rolled the D20, and he did it.
Natty one. And
dude, let me tell you the result of like all that like sort of ripple effects of that decision. I mean, epic. Like I'm so happy that I failed that death saving throw. As much as I love Marin, that was like a heart-wrenching moment for me. But yeah, I'm just being honest. I was like, for the very first time, high on mushrooms, and was like, all right, I'm gonna roll D20 here.
And it wasn't like and it wasn't what I liked about it too. I'll say I didn't want him to die, but what I liked what you did was it was a scene you didn't think nobody was going to get killed off. It was like a very, it wasn't a very important, it was just a monster, kind of thing. A non-named creature is what took out Marin. It wasn't a named supervillain from your book or anything like that. It was just a nameless creature that unfortunately he couldn't handle,
Yeah.
And I think that worked well. Yeah.
There's this Lord of the Rings TTRPG, and this is a very famous thing in Lord of the Rings lore, and it's not nameless things. I don't think, is it? That might be the right term, but there's a literal like mechanic built into the game where like an encounter against these I'm going to use the word cosmic, but cosmic beings that are just like dark and horrible and frightening, sort of like Berserk, like most of the freaking things we see in that story that are just like mind blowing, and just I'm like, wow, somebody thought of that. I'm like, well, I thought I was messed up.
Oh my God. Yeah, it gets pretty rough.
Yeah, I'm like, geez,
I'm rereading that right now. Yeah,
I think I'm okay. It's like I might be okay. Yeah, no. But Marin's death, although heart wrenching, was. And then I really want to. I think Salazmir as well as a character. I am curious as to his arc in the first book and what you all thought of him as a person when we first meet him, when we first get in his head, and then getting through the story and getting to where we get his enduring, like how we felt about Salazmir as a character. I'm just curious.
I kind of saw the warning signs coming, so I was getting a little sketched out, and I was like, all right. I was like, I think I'm picking up what Chance is putting down, and then so by the time that scene happened, I was like, all right, like this was, I saw it progressing, but it wasn't like completely obvious,
right?
So I think it was well, introduced and like built up to very well.
Heck yeah.
See, I was gonna say the other side of things. I knew something was happening, but I didn't really think of him much of as a character. Like he was just kind of like a POV that was telling some side of the plot. So I wasn't really reading into him as something's going to come out of him, like specifically come out of him.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
I knew that he was going to be the one, like in that plot, that something was going to happen, but I didn't think it was going to be him.
Heck
was that intentional, Chance, to maybe to kind of keep him kind of down low a little bit, but just kind of slowly reveal more and more?
His view of the world is actually super important. Like how he sees the world is probably one of the most important things about that character, because it's through such he has this lens of just like there's arrogance, there is a ton of ignorance as well, and then there's this wealth of experience and desire to do good, and there's so much that he's closed off to that you as the reader are exposed to, that you're just like, what are you doing, dude? Like, what kind of choices are you making? But for him, those choices make sense because of everything that he's seeing. At least that was my goal. And his arc as a whole is something that, well, again, I say as a whole, but it's all relative. Definitely for at least the first two books, it's one of those characters that I was very intent on seeing. There's a realistic. He isn't stupid. Let's just say that he isn't dumb, and I think we sort of see that he's not dumb and that he just wants to do well. He's incredibly competent but arrogant, and that was what I wanted to portray. Is like his view of the world through his lens is just so needed to be seen. The world needed to be seen by a character like that, who maybe has some very morally, probably one of the more morally gray characters for sure.
Who would you say was very difficult to write for of your characters?
Difficult to write for.
Or maybe you struggled with, maybe not necessarily difficult, but just,
I don't know. I guess one that like I have a ton of women who do like beta test reading and obviously copy editing and proofreading, but Viala I was like, obviously I'm writing a woman. I'm not a woman. Like, but again, like confidently, I sort of had the idea of who a character was. I wanted to make sure, again, she's sort of similar to Salazmir in some ways, because that's her mentor. Like, the lens of the world that she sees through is the same lens mostly, that because they run in the same circles. She's less privy to information for a lot of the story, and then quickly becomes privy to the information because she's arguably sharper than Salazmir is, or at least like has a better instinct at the very least. And so her, I wouldn't say was super difficult. It was just one that I will admit, like I actively wanted to do right by just a little bit more, simply because I understand that, like, I may not. I grew up with a sister and a mother, and I date women, So that's like my experience.
Well,
But
you
yeah,
also happen to make her pregnant too. So
yeah, that is a book 2 thing, and there were some copy editor notes that were that were thrown in there, which I think is important. Like I did it to the best of my knowledge, and then luckily things that needed to be corrected are like the very little things, but like things that do matter, things that like that created more authenticity, which was great. Like again, so super grateful that I had Gracie York as my copy editor for that reason, among many.
That is like one of the pitfalls with writing a female character. Like I kind of struggle with this with Shore, the female twin, because there's just, like as a guy, like you have certain blind spots. There's just stuff you wouldn't even questions that wouldn't even occur to you, observations or just a way of seeing something that would not occur to you because it's just not the experience that we have.
Yeah.
So good on you for essentially like getting the support to help like make that to fill the gaps.
Oh yeah.
We all have the gaps in various experiences.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's interesting because I have 5 main characters, and initially it was going to be 4 men and 1 woman, and I was writing from the husband's point of view, but then I was finding out that his wife had the more interesting story plot, at least for book 1 that I'm writing. So one of the things I did with rewrites is I changed it. I'm making her the POV over the male. She just has the interesting storyline. And so now I'm writing 2 female characters, and yeah, it's challenging for sure. And then especially changing the voice, because I'm changing every character where the husband is having his point of view, and now it's his wife doing all the point of view works. And so you also have to change her voice, and you have to change her perspective on things. I mean, I grew up with 2 older sisters, and my mom, my dad was the financial provider, so I didn't see him too much. So I grew up with a lot of women, and but it's my experience. And like you said, I want to do right by them. So
Yeah.
and I think you did a really good job with Viola. I liked following her. It was a different perspective from all your male characters, and I think it was needed for sure, and I'm glad you did that.
I got way more confident in book 2. I think I introduced at least 2 or 3 2 more perspectives that are going to be some perspectives that I dive a little bit deeper into as the series goes on. So it was really cool to get the confidence with executing well on Viola, and kind of get these other characters who are very different and experience their story as well. The Elteria situation that we find ourselves in at the end of book 1 is like this very interesting, odd, big reveal that sort of happened to me that I was like, this is a choice. Like I need to keep it in there. And like up until the 11th hour of book 2, that was something that I was still figuring out. Like, man, how am I'm obviously not getting into book 2 too much. I'm just like reflecting on book 1, I suppose, in this moment, because it's like I'm on the heels of book 2 releasing, so I apologize. But yeah, no, that revelation to me, I was like, oh man, like this is really cool. This character who I had mentioned a story earlier, that what came first was that story of Viola talking about to her father about how they came across a couple people on the road one day, and then I was like, oh, it'd be really cool if the little girl was Elteria. Like that'd be so sick. And so yeah, that's kind of where we hunted into that.
I'm just curious, and I always find it interesting how authors, because again, I don't write very long books. How do you keep everything kind of in line? Because clearly you have multiple POVs, you've got multiple names you got to keep up with. There's specific storylines. You've got again, you don't really do a whole lot of lore, but you've got stuff you've still got to keep up with. You've got the different wars that happen, the different factions, the different, etc. Like, do you do you have them all just kind of like written down like on a sheet to your side? And you're like, okay, I got to remember that this person has these eyes, this person has this, etc. Because it's a lot. I mean, when you're not just doing 2 or 3 characters for an entire series, I mean, you're talking several. And so what's your I guess best practice at keeping it all straight, so you don't get into book 2 and you start telling somebody else's perspective and a reader goes, wait, let me go back to book 1. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I'm kind of really screwed up, and it's just all in my head.
Holy shit!
And it's technically on paper if you think about it, because it's in a book, so it exists.
Right.
But technically, it's in my brain, including the deep lore and history and the creation of the world. It's all like sort of in here. There is some like creation myth stuff that I have written down in a document I haven't looked at in 2 years.
That is wild.
But it's like, but it all exists in my freaking head. Like, it's really screwed up. I will say I'm not perfect about like the eye color. The hair color is like lined out because I know who the races are, so that's like pretty easy for the most part. Like, there are some obviously characters who have different hair color, but for me, it's like that one is relatively easy. There are some more minor characters we don't see that much of, that my editors, fortunately, I have editors, they help me along the path, which I highly recommend. But yeah, no, for the most part, like all the history, who the characters are, where they come from, basically what they look like. That's all in a book, and therefore it's in my head. And Cal, maybe you have this experience because you're also a personal trainer. You deal with a lot of clients, and so you learn a lot of names, you learn a lot about people, and there's just so much to remember. If like, I think part of being a good personal trainer, obviously, is just like having a good personal relationship with your clients. Obviously to an extent, but you kind of get an idea of like their personal lives, and you get to like, they're being vulnerable. They're coming in, they're working out, and they're sharing things with you. And like, I think that I owe them the respect of like doing my best to remember what they're going in to do on the weekend. And, their kids' names, at least to a certain point, or if they got their nails done, and like, what color they were 2 weeks ago and like what color they are now. Like, that's like, it's little things, but that sort of maybe prepared me to be into the lore of my world. Also my love for just like cinematic lore and Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. Like, I wanted to create an IP that like feels alive. And a hint that I've done that for myself is that I remember these things, and that they stick out to me the way that like Darth Revan's upbringing does. You sort of have this orphan from a planet that like, it's an unknown planet technically, which, by the way, I have a screenplay in my Google Keep for a pilot for that story that I'm hoping Monday to yell at an executive. But yeah, no, but yeah, like it's real for me. It's like they're alive. The same reason I like fade to black on sex scenes. I'm like, yeah, some of these characters, like, that's their personal lives. Like, I'm not gonna get in there. It's not our business. Like, but yeah, which whatever. Take that with that what you will. But it's in my brain. That's a long-winded way of saying it's in my brain and I'm screwed up.
Well, worst case scenario, you can always go back to your own glossary at the end of your book.
Yeah.
So how big is how many notes are like how big is the note file for God's Blood Tragedy in that series?
Oh, we missed him. He's muted.
Can't hear you,
Bill. We lost you.
Sorry. I use spreadsheets, so I have like a dozen tabs. But you also have to remember that I've worked on this story since 2007.
Wow.
And there's been dozen different iterations. So, and there's 3 books that have been molded into one. So I have.
That's why I was asking, because I figure that you had to write this down somewhere, especially as it went through its various iterations.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep. Yeah, I have so many different spreadsheets, and it's funny because I was looking through my folders because I'm running out of Google storage. So I'm like looking what I can get rid of, and I'm finding these old ones, and I'm like, oh my God, these are bad. I'm so glad nobody ever saw this.
Yeah. Stephen King. Sorry, Cal. Go ahead.
I was gonna say the note file for Shadowbane, or that's Schism of Souls, is it's up to about like 85 pages right now, and including like outlines and stuff, and like stuff between the factions. I probably have like close to 10 pages of just quotes or lines that I just have available to use in the third book. And it was a little thicker when I put stuff in the second book. And then I also have like an entire Excel spreadsheet full of various translations for the terminology and stuff like that. Yeah, I couldn't keep it all straight, especially playing with a language that I don't speak.
Language, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow.
I use the free version of Campfire for like my character library, because I got a pretty large library of characters, and whether they're like I want everybody to kind of have their, like, you feel like everybody has their own story to tell in the book, no matter how minor they are. And and I don't want to be the one who like writes a book where it's like, oh, his eyes were blue in the first book, and
Yeah.
So, and my memory is just not what it is. So I applaud you. I work on it when I'm just not just feeling stuck in the book, and I'll work on my reference.
Yeah,
kind of
I'm
thing.
sure there's going to be a mistake or two over my time that gets by the editors and myself. I mean, it's just bound to. But that's the price I pay for keeping it all in my head and being lazy.
There's also just always that one reader too. So I mean, you can't really, you can't fool everybody, right?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, don't like dismember a character, because if you do that and don't remember, they caught it in their hands, and they're like, no, they only got one hand. You're gonna get.
I may or may not have dismembered a character in book 2.
Wait a minute, Logan has 10 fingers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I took Stephen King's advice of like, if it's a good idea, you don't need to write it down. Way too far, like way too far, and it's just like. I'm like, I'm gonna ride this wave. I will say, like, there are times where like I hit my capacity just like in a day, and I'm like, nah, I need to write that down, and then I'll look it over, like I let it simmer, and I'll be like, okay, it either has a place or it doesn't. But for the most part, like if I think of something, like the amount of ideas that have probably been flushed down my brain toilet are probably so too many, which is either maybe a good thing, maybe a bad thing, maybe it's a better thing that they don't see the light of day, or maybe they come up when they're supposed to come up, which isn't now, I guess. But yeah, in my freaking brain.
There is something to that Stephen King quote where he's saying essentially, like, if you have an idea, don't write it down right away, like, because if it's good, it'll stick.
Yeah.
And he, like his argument is that if you write it down right away, the idea doesn't have time to like percolate or evolve at all.
Yep.
And that is something that I think there's a lot of truth to that. Like, at least for my like personal brainstorming process, I do like to marinate and let things sit for a while, maybe take a really brief, like really jot something down briefly and then not look at that. And then once something's like concrete, I'm like, this is going in the story. Then I'm like, all right, I got to back this up somewhere. I have to reference this. Or especially if you're writing like really thick, like political plots, keeping track of who knows what is really hard.
Oh, shit.
Like, because as the writer, you have all the information in your head, but you don't always realize who knows what information. Yeah, that was one of the hardest things for me to keep track of when I was writing this the sequel here.
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess I didn't think about that. Shit. Well, I think we made it out of book 2 unscathed. Book 3 is gonna have book 3 is gonna have quite a bit of politics. So that one will be interesting. I literally wrote a scene last week that is just like, you have I'll spoil it a little bit. You have 63 members of this political, let's call it a situation. And yeah, that's going to be interesting because they all have different motivations. Wow. Yeah, that's something to think about.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to get into 63 people's heads, at least those 63. So thank goodness. Wow. Oh, but I do appreciate you guys that you all decided to read Mercy. It like means the world, and doing it together is crazy. Just like that happened. and is happening. It's blowing my mind, the reception of the story, and yeah, I took risks, and I'm happy to hear that. Unrelated, you guys took your own risks. Obviously, I think like you were saying, Cal, like a lot of writers take risks, and you have to choose. You have to pick and choose where those risks are, and it's like a sort of a careful balance. I definitely tried my best to take risks while making it reasonable for the reader to hang out and get through the story. And I'm grateful that you guys not only started it but finished it and took that journey sort of with me, because that's really what you did. is that story as it is told by way of like me exploring and me searching. So I appreciate you guys doing the same thing very much.
Yeah, it was
One
really
of the
fun
things-
reading everything with you guys.
Yeah,
I
for
was just saying
sure.
it was fun to read it.
Except for Bill, he finished it too fast.
Yeah, Bill, I don't know how you did that with writing and your own stuff and your
I'm
life
tired
and
of looking
family.
at my own book right now, so I need to be reading something.
I'm such a slow reader. I'm just like, it takes me forever.
Well, I will say, so I'm kind of a speed reader. Like I will skip through paragraphs, and that's also why I was kind of confused in this book at the beginning, is because you can't really do that. You have to pay attention to this stuff, otherwise you're going to be like, wait, what is that term? What does that mean again? And then, so I had to slow down a little bit. But like I said, once you get it, though, it just the pace is really quick.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I think what also helps, Chance, is how transparent you are with your approach to your book. You put out your videos of talking about writing, which as a writer myself, I appreciate. I like watching people do their process. When you have a group of authors that talk about their book, you often, sometimes the process gets, skipped. And what I appreciate you is your transparency on, this is where I'm at with my book. This is what I'm having to work with now. And I like that you gave us the process. And I think it made approaching Mercy so much, easier to get into the knowledge, because you always feel like you're already there. I already felt like I was there from watching all your videos and you talking about, especially since we share Discord, I got that privilege too. So, getting all of that beforehand really helped me just like breeze through a lot of the stuff that might be complex for, somebody who's never heard of you or doesn't follow you necessarily and just picked up your book on a whim and, feel lost or something like that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah. That's another part of the journey too. The transparency behind word count is sort of like it's obviously a little bit of accountability, and also there's something to be said about when I come across an artist I really like, the more I can see of them and their process greatly impacts how I feel about that artist. The more I know about the artist, like it's like. It just emboldens it. It's not that it needs to be there. Of course, you can have great stories and art without that. But for me, it's something that I personally enjoy. So when I set out to tell this story, and I knew I was making a booktube channel, I binge watched Fallout in a single day, and I was like, I need to talk about what 5 books I would bring with me on an apocalypse, because I want to use one of them as a weapon at the very least. And then as I made, I think like second or third video I made, I was like, okay, I need to talk about my story, because it's just like, that's real for me. And though like, I hope this doesn't go against my earlier conversation where I was like, ignorance is a tool. It is. Also, like, you need to be a voracious reader. I was being a voracious reader and I wanted to share my reading experience. I was fortunate that opened up opportunities with other reading blogs to have conversations about other stories. And just like build those relationships with people, because we like the same things. And that's also one of the most fun parts about this experience. Every time I've met people in person related to books, it is always such a lovely experience. And I always walk away feeling like, wow, like these are my people. and which is a really cool experience. And I keep saying but the word count stuff is definitely is a big part of accountability for me and transparency with readers. You guys know where I'm at and telling my story week by week, and the expectations are there. So as I get into my official drafting phase of book 3, every week we're going to have a word count update, and you guys are going to see what's going on by way of things happening right now on the business side of being a writer, and things that are happening on the creative side of being a writer. And the business side, unfortunately, is going to take a hit. It just sort of has to. I just have to give it a hit because I'm paying way too much attention to it right now, and it's sort of killing right now with book 2 coming out. I'm like, it's important, of course, but I am eager to get back to writing book 3, very eager, and I need to put more time into it. But I'm grateful that you said that, Christopher. It means a lot.
Absolutely. Any final thoughts, guys, on Mercy?
I would say, like, I respect you trusting your gut. I respect the courage that it took to write the book the way you did it, and that that you stuck to your guns and told the story you wanted to tell, especially its debut. Like, it's impressive. So, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's an ambitious book, and I love when people are that ambitious and just do it. Like, say fuck it and let it go. So it's awesome that it's taking off, because it doesn't always take off, especially in this indie community, indie sphere. It's like you never know what is going to take off, if anything, and it's cool when you actually see awesome people doing awesome work.
Thank you.
Agreed.
And good job not being an asshole.
yeah. Which is apparently also a pretty hard thing to do in this business.
Yeah.
That's all I know. Damn.
No, I think just from my FOMO experience with the indie community and the writers, and all you authors are just amazing, and prominent reviewers such as David. It makes me feel a lot more confident that I can go into this. Even if one person likes my book, whatever. But hey, yeah,
single
sure.
reader. That's find your one reader, and then they'll shout to the rooftops about it.
But like you mentioned, it's about your confidence, and it's about writing what you want. And even if it's something not everybody's looking for, who cares? It's what you are looking for.
Exactly. It doesn't need to be weighed against other things, which is obviously easier said than done.
Trends, trends, writing for the trends. That
I don't know. That stuff feels. I hope I don't sound judgmental, even though at the risk of sounding judgmental, I'm going to say it. It's just like gross, like for me. It just didn't feel authentic. That said, for me, that might be authentic for somebody else. If they want to write to market trends and that's like something that's authentic for them, then fine, like totally. Authenticity is the number one rule, and that can look different for different people. But I'm grateful for all the kind words. I will be obviously picking up Shadowbane and God's Blood Tragedy, and maybe one day, David, when I have children, I'll be able to read them your books. Because God knows I
book
can't.
for yourself. It's fine.
I think when my first kid turns 6 or 7, I'll read them the prologue of Mercy. No,
your child is set up for not
a bad idea.
Is
that a bad idea?
Look, I was gonna say earlier, like the prologue almost got me. I was like, I don't know if I can do this.
No, yeah, trust me, that was.
I was like, what did I set myself up for?
Yeah, as far as risks are concerned, I was very worried about that one. I was like, you're either gonna put this book down or you're gonna keep going.
You're just gonna have to fight through it.
That was
fiction.
Story.
It's fiction.
I faded to black initially, actually, when I wrote that scene. And then I'd seen somebody say, like, don't, like, just like explore and see what happens. And I did. And I was like, shit, that's so much better. And the doors that opened, the avenues that opened in the creative process was so, especially if you get to the very end of book 1, obviously so extensive. Like, which is it just sucks that I had to do it.
Right.
I read that. I was like, oh my god, he went for it.
Yeah, it's one of those things though, like, having read stuff like Berserk, you kind of desensitize yourself to a lot of things. But there's still things out there that you're just like, oh man, all right, I gotta take a step back for a second and I'll come back to it. But no, that most of the stuff that I read with, especially because I've been reading Grimdark for a while and dark fantasy, I'm just like, all right, this is nothing. But then you throw children in there, and I was like, I got kids now, I can't.
Unfortunate. a part of the it's a very unfortunate truth, but it is truth. There are evil fucking people that exist, and that is just one of them. Unfortunately, and it was heart-wrenching for me to I mean, it's in hindsight it almost feels cliche to like introduce this like cute little girl, like
right.
This guy's daughter, and obviously he's like obsessed with her and his wife.
It hit. Yeah, it hit.
It hit. Yeah.
And it's just like, that would fucking, I think that's most,
I don't even have kids and it hit. Yeah.
That's most people's fear, I think, is that they become not incapable, but like you have this fear that it's a deep humanly rooted fear of not being able to protect the ones we love. Right. And I actually read Jack Carr's Terminalist series. That was like one of my first entries into fiction as a reader. And if you guys haven't read it or watched the show, that is where that idea spawned. Just is all I'll say. Hopefully, I mean, I probably fucking spoiled it, but it's like the first couple of chapters. So, but yeah, it's a very good political thriller series by Jack Carr, and it was just the truth of what happened. So I was like, I gotta tell it, know. Unfortunately,
good job.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. Seriously, I'm so grateful. If you guys want to hang out for 2 seconds, I just want to I need a shout from the rooftops about something that Christopher's already privy to.
Chance, tell us where we can find you.
Oh, ChanceDillonAuthor.com. All my socials are available on there somewhere. You can sign up to my newsletter. I do a newsletter every week. That's my first book, Mercy, Tears of the Fallen. There you go. And book 2 comes out March 31st. And we have some special editions coming out for pre-order, hopefully within the next 30 to 45 days of both books together, which I'm really, really excited about. I'm not saying where just yet. Not that I don't think I can, but I just haven't asked. So I'm going to wait until I get full confirmation. But yeah, I'm just super freaking excited to everything and everybody reading this story and sharing their experiences with me. So grateful, especially because all you guys write as well, and so your stories, obviously there's a lot of wisdom there, and I'm grateful that you guys offered that to me. So thank you.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Hell yeah!
It was really cool.
All right, we going not live anymore, Christopher. Oh, we can't hear you, Christopher. Is he muted for everybody? Okay, I didn't know.
Yeah, I can't hear him.
Me.
No, I can't hear.
No, we can't hear you. Something happened between.
I think the cat knocked the mic out.
There you go. He's like, yeah, this has happened before. Nope, it's busted.
Way to be able to end your own show.
There you go. I think we're good.
It was going so well. It was going so well.
I was like, yeah, there's an awful lot of silence.
There's always one technical issue.
All right.
We're good.
No, I was just going to mention, Cal, where can we find you?
You can find me at callogan.com. I am on Twitter and Instagram. And Shadowing there is available everywhere books are sold except for major bookstores.
Inside of them, but on their website.
Might have some sequel-related news of my own coming out in the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned.
And Shadowbane is good. I loved it. So
it is awesome.
Thank you.
I had to swear quite a bit at Kale for the ending.
That's high praise.
Christopher is frozen. Bill, I think shoot
Bill.
where can we find you, Bill?
Yeah, you could find me at willowwraithpress.com. That's our blog site. Got a bunch of friends in there, other writers and whatnot. But yeah, I have a Kickstarter going on right now for a fun book I wrote that David was able to read. It's my popcorn book. It's called Death Show Colossus, but here's the naked cover.
Whoa.
So good.
Wait, who did that? You got to tell me.
Her name is Helena Nicolina. She did Tori Tekken's
Yeah.
Quicksilver or something.
Dude, that's like Arcane
But-
vibes.
Yeah, it's the Running Man meets Shadow the Colossus.
Shadow of the Colossus.
It's really good.
Badass.
It's really good. Very fast paced, very quick read.
It's action.
It's
Action,
all
action.
action. It does not let off the gas.
Hell yeah.
No.
It's packed. So
What's the release date on that again, Bill?
It's the 26th of May.
Okay.
Close.
Yeah. So the Kickstarter ends on Friday, and then it's basically balls to the wall to get it out. But it's in the Cosmere world of Bill Adams. It's related to God's Blood Tragedy. There's some hints in there and stuff like that. Different world, but same universe.
Oh, I saw the dust jacket. Okay. I knew I wasn't crazy.
Yeah, but I say you saw the Felix Ortiz.
Yeah. Okay. I knew I wasn't crazy.
David,
Yeah, you can find me on fanfiaddict.com. Also on socials, on Instagram as fanfiaddict, and on Twitter, and I guess I don't really do a whole lot of BlueSky, but I'm on there as Lord TBR FFA. I'll let you know when my books come out. I'm hoping late spring for my first. It's called And Then There's the Bard. It's a little D&D children's picture book if you have kids or if you just enjoy reading picture books. And I've got another, like I said, I've got a cozy fantasy coming out in the fall. Title has not been revealed yet, so I will keep that to myself. So.
Love a good bard story.
Yeah.
I'll have for anybody who watched this recorded, I'll have everybody linked in the description below. Their websites, if they have a BookTube channel, all of that will be down there. All right, guys. Thank you all very much for stopping by. It was an honor for me to have shared the screen with so many authors and prominent reviewers, so this was an honor for me. Definitely fill out the FOMO. Probably do some writing tonight. Otherwise, we will see you all next time. Thank you for watching.
Oh yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.